Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
To today's Jumma program at Masjid Haqq, the entrance of Lodium, Pretoria, South Africa. Today's Jumma lecture is entitled The Spaza Shop Crisis, and it will be delivered by Brother Yusuf Mustafa, who is a seasoned journalist and researcher at Radio 1584 and Medina Media. Jazakallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against Shaitan, the rejected one. I begin with the mighty name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may peace and blessings be upon all the Anbiya, especially Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, together with his esteemed members of his household, his committed companions, and the entire respected Muslim Ummah. I greet you all in the universal greeting of peace, the peace that we desperately need given the current situation taking place around the world. We desperately need peace to prevail, especially in countries as occupied Al-Quds, in countries as Kashmir, in countries as Somalia, Sudan, and now in South Africa, right at our doorstep. We desperately need this peace. A point to note before I carry on is that all the chaoses that we need peace for, that are happening around the world, we have noted that children, little children, are the ones that are affected. Recently, a report by the United Nations says that in Al-Quds, or in occupied Palestine, out of the 43,000 deaths that has happened over a period of 12 months, 43,000 people have been massacred. And out of that, the majority are children. That was very shocking. In countries like Sudan, where there is one of the biggest refugee camps in the world, the most vulnerable and those who are affected by diseases and deaths are children. And now in South Africa, President Ramaphosa has released a figure of 890 cases of people poisoned by buying certain food products from the squatter camp, or rather from the spaza shops in the squatter camps mainly. And the majority of that 890 are children, with 22 children dead. And of course, there is an investigation that is currently taking place, spearheaded by Ramaphosa himself and some of the agencies, like health agencies and police agencies, investigating what is the cause of these food poisoning or deaths. Of course, there are shocking findings currently taking place that has resulted in this situation called the South African spaza shop fiasco. Now, this fiasco, unfortunately, has turned very messy and is causing animosity between the local people or the indigenous people of South Africa and those so-called foreigners. Now the reason obviously is that most of these spaza shops where these contaminated food products have been found are owned and run by mainly foreigners. Of course, there are a lot of house shops and spaza shops that are owned by local people, but the majority are owned by foreigners. Now the reason why there is such animosity is because recently, as far as yesterday, there are very big warehouses that have been cracked down, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, where they found that there is a lot of products, expired food products, that have made their way into South Africa from foreign countries. And obviously, there are a certain group of people that are implicated in this. We don't deny that there are rogue elements amongst ourselves who come with these good products all in the name of making money. But unfortunately, the image of every foreigner is tarnished. That is one part of the investigation that is taking place. Now another part that is very sensitive. Now this one, we, including the government itself, is finding it very difficult how to handle this. We don't have answers on how to handle this information that I'm going to reveal to you now. Now this requires our utmost attention because of dangers of being misquoted. In South Africa, for years, we're talking of hundreds of years, spaza shops have been part and parcel of South Africa. There is no township that existed without a spaza shop. And now research revealed that spaza shop, they actually gave Alexandra and Senten as a case study. They discovered that, the research discovered that the spaza shop makes billions of rands from the mainstream economy of South Africa, almost overshadowing the formal sector of business. Research also was conducted in other places like Soshangube, Mabopane, Kaelisha, Ilanga, Mamelodi, Easteras. It was discovered that billions of rands are made by the inclusion of spaza shops. Fast forward now. I personally took a research and discovered that now the multinational corporations, now multinational corporations are these huge companies that operate between countries and sometimes dodging even the rules and regulations of a country. Now these are big companies that even influence the legislature. In other words, they influence the running of government because of the big purses that they have. In South Africa, unfortunately, there is a danger that these multi-corporations are influencing the status quo or business status quo of this country. What is happening now is that in these huge townships, these multinational corporations are migrating from urban areas into the townships and putting up very big shopping malls. Those who are conducting businesses in the townships, you'll discover that they are very big shopping centers at almost each and every radius of about 4 kilometers in the townships. In Mabopane, where we are, we have discovered that these huge shopping complexes are so sophisticated and even bigger than your Mainline and your Brooklyn malls. And most of the anchor businesses in these shopping centers are run by multinational corporations. Now, why am I giving you all this information? Is that these multinational corporations have taken now the financial fight from the traditional, sophisticated and upmarket areas. They have discovered that the money now flows from the townships. let's take the fight there. They've taken the fight there. Now, the problem that they are facing is one. Because the guys in the townships, they are still supporting the spaza shops. And the big multinational bagged shopping malls are becoming white elephants. The township guy is still taking his money to the man next door who is running the spaza shop. Now, who is the man next door running the spaza shop is not a local South African. It is your Somalian, your Sudanese, it is your Ethiopian, it is your Zimbabwean, it is your Mozambican. These are the guys that are a thorn in the flesh of the big malls that have sprung up in the township. Now, these big companies, how do they now have to get rid of the thorn in the flesh? Who is your Somalian, your Ethiopian, your Zimbabwean, your Malawian, your Mozambican? These are the big thorns in the flesh. How do you now get rid of these thorn in the flesh? Create an animosity between the buyer and the operator of the spaza shop. Now, as I said, these are sensitive information that I'm revealing to you, but these are information that we have made a research on. Suspicion that there is a third force at play here who is causing a rift between the locals and the foreigners. Now, the locals, what do? They start now going to these spaza shops and say, you are a foreigner, you are not allowed to operate in South Africa. Now look at now where it becomes very funny and strange. First, the issue was poison of food to the children. Then it turned into foreign-owned spaza shop. From foreign-owned spaza shop, it turned again to unregistered spaza shop. Do you see now what is at play here? And then it turned into a political ploy because there is a party called Tutula. Tutula goes to each and every spaza shop. Why Tutula came into play now? Because the Somalians, especially in Limpopo, they even took the local government to court and they won the case. Now the case was, the local government in Limpopo, they said most of the spaza shops which are owned by Somalians, Ethiopians and other foreigners are not registered and they are not allowed to be operated in South Africa. So these Somalians say, but wait a minute, we are registered. And they said, no. Besides being registered, you are not even allowed as a foreigner or a refugee or an asylum seeker to operate a business in South Africa. So the Somalians, Ethiopians, and everybody else, they grouped together. They took the case to the Constitutional Court, the highest decision-making court in South Africa. And they won the court. They won the case. The case says it declared that foreigners, asylum seekers, refugees are allowed to operate shops and businesses in South Africa. And then yesterday again in Soweto, when these foreigners, those who are not registered, they went to the registration offices, they found foreigners standing there and saying, no, you are not even allowed to register, but you are supposed to move out of the country because these shops are supposed to be operated by local people. But history has proven that you cannot operate South African economy without a foreigner being involved. Look at our forefathers. Most of us here grew up in Marabastad. You know, through your vivid memory, that when you came from school, when you come home, the first entrance in front was what? Was a shop. Then you go into the kitchen. Then obviously at the back is your bedrooms. So this was part and parcel of the mainstream economy of South Africa. You cannot do away without spaza shops or house shops as some people call it. In Lodium now, you can see the status quo is changing. who is operating most of these houses that are being turned into shops now. We agree that, of course, there are rogue elements who are dealing in backdoor goods and contaminated goods. That will exist everywhere in the world. We should be on the outlook of saying those who are tarnishing the image of those who want to earn an honest living must make sure that they are dealt with. At this juncture, we would like to commend the South African police services for cracking down on these rogue elements. But at the same time, we would like to advise the South African government, the law enforcement agencies, and every business sector to be on the lookout that, look, gentlemen, there are thousands of people, if not millions of people, that have chosen South Africa as a beautiful country to earn a living. And all the foreigners that are honestly earning a living, if you are not registered, will advise you to abide by the laws of the country and to get registered. And for the local guys, my friends in the local communities, especially in the township, please, let's not be lured into hatred between indigenous people and foreigners. Most of us, 90% of us, we are part and parcel of foreigners. Our forefathers, grandfathers, everybody else in South Africa is part and parcel of being foreign linked. And also remember, Africa is a continent that mainly had no borders. This issue of borders and say this one is a Somalian, this one is an Ethiopian, is a foreign thing that was imposed on Africa by the colonialists. Now the colonialists want to impose that and cause a hatred and rift. Africa was one. In conclusion, I would like to conclude with the words of Nelson Mandela. Now these are the words of an icon, humanitarian icon, who said, South Africa, he was talking to his fellow South Africans. He says, I know my days are numbered, any time God will take me. But I leave you with very important message. This message is that South Africa has always been a bread basket of everybody that comes into South Africa. South Africa is a country that has fed the world. And he said that is the secret of success of South Africa. It gave, and it gave, and it is giving, and it should continue giving. He said, the moment that South Africa will close doors to any foreigner, that is the demise of South Africa. So he says, my fellow South Africans, don't close any door to any foreigner or anybody that comes and seek a living. The moment you do that is the moment that South Africa is going to go down. We'd like to prove Nelson Mandela true to his words. From my side, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أكبر
الله أكبر.
لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. بسم الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وبه نستعين على أمور الدنيا والدين، وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، أيها المسلمون، الاستقامة قبل الندامة هذا هو عنصرنا الأول، وأننا لا بد أن نكون من عباد الله المستقيمين حتى لا نكون من النادمين. فإن الله تبارك وتعالى قص علينا في كتابه العزيز طرفا من أحوال الذين لم يستقيموا على شرع الله تبارك وتعالى في هذه الحياة الدنيا. فقال الله تعالى: ويوم يعض الظالم على يديه يقول يا ليتني اتخذت مع الرسول سبيلا، يا ويلتى ليتني لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا. لا شك مظهر عظيم من مظاهر الندم بلغ بصاحبه أنه لا يعض على أصبع واحد، وإنما يعض أصابع كلتا يديه ندما على أنه لم يكن من المستقيمين المتبعين لصراط سيد الأولين وسنة وطريق سيد المرسلين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه صلى الله عليه وسلم. وحينما لا ينفع الندم قال الله تعالى: وقال الذين كفروا لن نؤمن بهذا القرآن ولا بالذي بين يديه ولو ترى إذ الظالمون موقوفون عند ربهم يرجع بعضهم إلى بعض القول يقول الذين استضعفوا للذين استكبروا بل مكر الليل والنهار إذ تأمروننا أن نكفر بالله ونجعل له أندادا وأسروا الندامة لما رأوا العذاب وجعلنا الأغلال في أعناق الذين كفروا هل يجزون إلا ما كانوا يعملون. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. عباد الله، أولا أوصيكم نفسي ونفسكم بتقوى الله سبحانه وتعالى. قال الله تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. وارض اللهم عن خلفاء الراشدين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الدين يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر من نصر ديننا، اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. استووا تقاربوا واعتدلوا سدوا الخلل. الله أكبر. أكبر. بسم الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام، تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم لا تدع لنا في مقامنا هذا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا مريضا إلا شفيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة إلا قضيتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، وخاصة أهلنا في فلسطين، أهلنا في غزة يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصرهم يا رب العالمين وأيدهم. اللهم عليك باليهود الغاصبين. اللهم عليك باليهود الغاصبين. اللهم عليك باليهود الغاصبين. اللهم اجعل أموالهم وبيوتهم غنيمة للمسلمين. وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.